y'all, welcome to the official coffee contest results video. So we had a bunch of people submit. Thank you to everybody who participated in the first ever coffee art contest. This was great. Now the winner had already been contacted a couple of days ago that, bro, you are the winner. Congratulations. They know who they are. But today we're going to be going through all the submissions and we're going to be analyzing everything if they followed the rubric. Now, y'all can't tell me I didn't tell you about the rubric. I made a whole video about it as to how I'm going to judge y'all, right? If you've been watching my paid reviews, you should know how I assess a manga, MANAA page in general. So for those who never knew, most likely you're going to participate in the next one. I wanted to host these every 3 months, but we will see. 3 months from now should be what? September, October, November. Should be in November, but I will have to make another official announcement, right? Because a lot of cash going into coffee originals and stuff like that. So yeah. But anyway, so the requirements for the contest was artists. You were supposed to draw one finished page featuring one bloody hell character and your own character. You could also submit as a writer. Write 600 to 800 words of a page featuring one bloody hell character and your own. Now, there has been one writer who submitted a document writing, well, the page. But unfortunately, it's not much of a competition if there's nobody who's going to, compete with you as a writer. So unfortunately, for the one who wrote, we're going to look at it though. I'm still going to give feedback on it. Unfortunately, bro, I mean, that just doesn't make any sense, right? There has to be competition. That's what a contest is. Others didn't submit any documents. There were supposed to be others, I guess they didn't. But luckily, this very writer also submitted a page, right? So that's about it. And the cash prize is $50. Oh, that's low, says the Hunchback. Well, I don't see you giving away $50, Hunchback. Where's your contest? Where are all the people entering your stuff? Damn, Hunchback. So let's look at the rubric real quick. The rubric requirements in every page. Now, if you did not follow everything here, it's not that you're going to be disqualified. You're just going to be, you're just not going to win, you know. But I'm still going to present those pages and so on. So the rubric, the requirements were, I will assess the use of passable, right? I will assess the familiarity of your art style, you know, because familiarity is the key component in modern manga creation here. You gotta create something that looks familiar, to have an art style, a visual style that is familiar to IPs that we know and love. Context. So for those who never read Bloody Hell, some of you definitely might struggle with the context of how to put either Jacob or Lisa or Irene, any of the characters from my IP in the correct context. You might struggle with that, but surprisingly, I know some people didn't read everything till the end, but those who read enough, they managed to do some convincing things. I'm like, oh, this is actually nice context, you know. My biggest things that I would be looking for is definitely context, really, right? Context and drawing on the correct size paper, right? Those are the two major things I'm looking for, but all four do matter. But context is what determines if you understand my characters, right? It means you have to do some homework, okay? Either you read some of the free chapters, you read the old version, which the art was not upgraded, but the story is still the same, so on and so on. Drawing on the correct size paper, man, I'm not going to tolerate anybody who just draws on random paper, right? Manga is produced on a specific sized paper. There's a specific format, right? And I'm gonna be opening up Clip Studio right now, resizing your stuff to see does it fit in the template, right? So anyway, let's get started. So let's go to Clip Studio right now. I've already imported the first submission. First submission actually came from Luck. Luck is now a member of Koffee Originals. And when he first submitted, I told him that, bro, this page of yours is not drawn on the correct size paper. He immediately, less than 24 hours, fixed it. And within a couple of hours, sent it right back to me. So this page, if you look at everything correctly, right, has been resized properly, right? And it is correct. Versus the first image he sent, which is this one. We want to resize this, and we'll see how it gonna look like. Let me decrease the opacity. How it gonna look like if I size it out to the max, right? So as you can see, this amount of space here, it's just too small. It does not follow proper, it doesn't follow the template, right? It has to follow the template. It just looks awkward, it looks weird. You can tell that, nah, bro just did not follow the template at all, right? Even if I were to resize it like that, you can see words like here, they get cut off, right? It's not within the text box. So automatically, bro would not win over here. He would not win at all. If I were to resize it again to fit completely within the page, still that word is cut off. The space down here as well is just awkward compared to this one, right? You see the breathing room. Notice as well that the first version, right, I mentioned in the video how I'll be judging your stuff, right? That you gotta break repetition with your paneling. And bro heard the advice and he broke the repetition, making this character of his, right, his panel lower than the one where Jacob is in. So now, because he's drawn it on the correct size paper, we can shut that one down and just have a look at this one. Let me do this real quick, just to hide the guidelines. Okay, so it's on the right size paper. Now let's have a look according to the rubric. Let's look at the context. I also said in that video that context matters. And I remember talking about this, that in the first one, it's hard to assess the context here. Did they just have a fight, right? Did someone die? If so, there's no indication that a battle just took place because there's no battle damage on either of the characters. So the resubmission, right, shows that yes, a battle just took place and somebody died. It looks like it, right? The context suggests that somebody just died. And, you know, it's okay. It makes sense. It's fine. Look at the rubric again. In terms of familiarity, well, just looking at the art style, really, I felt like this character reminded me of Levi from Attack on Titan. So with familiarity, when you have that down on lock, you know, it naturally builds curiosity for the viewer. So like, oh, this reminds me of 1, 2, and 3. What's this about? You see what I mean? I look at this, it reminded me of Attack on Titan because of the art style. There's a lot of gray tones as well, but it's used fairly well, right? So yeah, I would say familiarity was executed well. When it comes to the use of passable, now passable, there has to be contrast, good contrast, composition, vivid facial expressions, and panel flow. Now it's just one page, but because he broke the repetition of how he used his panels, right? He went over the gutter with the new submission. The panel flow has been improved, so that's good, right? He decreased the size of this panel, right? Giving a bit more rhythm overall to the page. So use of passable here is excellent, really. The contrast is good. The facial expressions are great. What else? The composition is fantastic, especially actually for this scene here. It's great use of perspective as well. So it's good. Some of you might say, Koffee, how did you decide who won then? It wasn't easy. The guy who won actually was the last guy to submit. He submitted like a couple of hours before the deadline closed. It was not going to be easy. The person who was going to win, if not this guy, people were going to accuse me of being biased, right? So I'm kind of glad this guy won, which he's going to be the last one I show, right? Because I didn't want people to accuse me that, oh, you got a bias just because, you all are working together. I don't want no nepotism accusation here and whatnot and corruption. So this was Luck's submission. Well done. I definitely give this a 7 out of 10 for a page. Bro did good, and he upgraded his stuff, and now he's part of Koffee Originals, and he's upgrading his stuff there. So it's gonna be awesome, right? So let's get rid of these pages now and bring in the next submission that came after Luck. And it is also a member of Koffee Originals, and it is Vein Lover. Now, Vein Lover has always understood the craft very well. So let us see if everything fits properly where it should. Let's look at this. And here we are. Everything fits nicely within the template. Double check again. Yes, you see my template in particular. You see all these little lines here, right? At a subjective level, right? I never go beyond this line. If I'm going to put a panel line like this one, this black one, I never go beyond this, right? I never touch this red one. I never really go beyond or be in the middle over here. That's just me. For me, it just is more neat if you stick to this line and don't go beyond it. But sometimes you can feel a need to slightly go beyond, perhaps because you want more negative space in a way. You want to use the space more. But anyway, let us assess Vein Lover's submission then. So, judging from, so she already automatically passed with the correct paper size. Assessing context, remember talking about this, that the context here is heavy. This is somebody who must have read volume 3, when Jacob had his sword broken by Dracula. And definitely what was happening in the story in volume 3, it looked like Jacob was not going to make it. So Vein Lover decided that, you know what, let me make it look like he didn't make it at all. And let me symbolize that he didn't make it by showing the broken sword on the ground. This is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. Vein Lover would have been the winner if it was not for the guy who submitted at the last second. She would have won because her passable's on lock, her paper size is correct, the context is very strong, right? And what was the last one? The familiarity as well. It's just lock on, because her art style definitely reminds me of Legend of Zelda and a little bit of Disney. But overall, her art style for this soft moment, this moment of grief, is just excellent. She's comforting Lisa at the suggested loss of Jacob, right? Lisa and Jacob have been friends for 200 years after all, right? So it's fantastic. It sticks to the theme. Some people, I was like, bruh, you didn't stick to the theme at all. The theme was grief. That was the theme, right? Draw my character and yours, right, within the theme of grief. Some dudes didn't do that. And I'm like, hey man, I made it clear. I don't know what the heck you were thinking. So definitely, Vain Lovers page gets a proper 10 out of 10, right? Notice how there's not much background. There's no background at all, but there's no need, bro. The composition is just right. Looking at Passable again, right? It's in the center, the sword being right here in the front, in the foreground, and it overlapping here into the other panels. It leads your eye. Look at how the hair starts from here, and then you just come over here. You know, you see Lisa's hair over there, and it just flows very well, right? The panel flow is just great. Her understanding of not making panels all the same size or creating repetitious paneling. She's a pro, so she understands what I understand. No, Coffee, you're not a pro. Okay, if you say I'm not a pro at drawing, yeah, I guess I'm a pro in knowledge. At the end of the day, I'm the editor right now, and I'm the one giving this money away. Oh, well, it's only $50. Where's your $50 then, bro? Where's your $50? I don't want to hear it, because you hunchbacks gonna come here and just want to hate. You have nothing to offer. I'm gonna suggest something to you, bro. Go grab a gun and sort yourself out, right? So Vain Lover might have got a 10 out of 10 for this page, but she still didn't make the cut, right? She still didn't make the cut. But good on her for this submission. Let's move on to the next one. So the next submission comes from, y'all see how many there are here? Comes from Garmin. Now, Garmin, we have a problem. We have a problem, Garmin. Oh. Yeah. Y'all can see the problem already. Y'all can see the problem already, I'm sure. So this is Garmin submission. And we go quickly to the rubric, starting at the bottom. Was it drawn on B4 paper? The answer is no, it wasn't. This is rather square-like, you know. If anything, it just felt like you just drew it, bro, you know, and you didn't consider the fact that it should be in a manga or comic page at all. So on just that, unfortunately, you did not follow the rubric, so it was drawn on the incorrect size paper. But let us assess, before that, and because it was drawn on the incorrect paper, you see how these words are going out of the text box, right? Right? I mean, sometimes you can be okay, like this is this text box here. Let me mark it in red. If you in here, right, you're the safest. If you are here, okay, but I don't recommend it, right? Ultimately though, it's on the wrong size paper anyway. The context here shows Jacob saving what appears to be his character, and well, it looks all right, but it is missing intensity. You know, it's missing intensity. So what would you do to make this scene a bit more intense? Well, let's play around, shall we? This is what I do when I play around with editing for Dudes at Coffee Originals. So I usually say that, look, man, after an intense moment, there gotta be some debris action. By the way, I'm using a mouse, so I don't want to hear it. Oh, you can't even draw debris. There gotta be some smoke action, right? like the battle is fresh, because clearly it must be fresh, right? Just to show that there was conflict just now and Jacob just came to the rescue right now, right? She actually should be bleeding. I don't see any blood dripping over here except out of her mouth, which is weird, right? It's like, bruh, her whole leg got cut off. Both her legs got cut off. This area here should be bloody, right? Should be really bloody. I'm using a mouse. I don't want to hear it. I'm just showing suggestions for next time. Okay, there should be blood dripping down. There should actually also be battle damage on her body. You saw the way Luck put battle damage on the character's body, right? To show that there was a battle here. You see, because she looking all fresh, like she just came out the shower. But you come out the shower with no legs and you're bleeding out the mouth. You see, it just isn't believable. Jacob as well, we see some damage on his cape over here that he's bleeding, right? But more damage could have been added. Him bleeding from the mouth, I see it over there. You know, I see it over there, but perhaps if it was dripping down. But in general, more battle damage would have been appreciated to show how severe this moment really was. Because it's just not really believable right now, right? It's not believable enough. Now, of course, again, these are suggestions. I don't want to hear it. And I'm using a mouse. But for next time, anyone who wants to enter, and of course, depending on the theme, make sure that after an intense moment, in order to sell the context to us, put the correct factors that can create believability that a battle just took place here. Maybe some cracks in Jacob's armor, you know? So this is the context of what just happened. Now, if we assess the familiarity part, right? Now this art style looks a bit unfamiliar to me, a bit. I want to say it reminds me of Fist of the North Star. Perhaps it's because how big Jacob looks here, but that's the closest I can get, you know. It kind of reminds me of Fist of the North Star. But Fist of the North Star's rendering is way more technical. You know, it has bolder lines, you know. It has cross-hatching in particular proper places. I mean, I see some cross-hatching over there, right? But there would be more. So it ain't bad. It's just when we see something new, again, it's hard to get into unless you have a strong foundation in something familiar. This also reminds me a bit of American comics. Just what sells it as a manga is actually the way how the female is drawn. Her hair and her eyes, even though it's slightly hard to see, but in general, the hair and eyes, the way it's, you know, the screen tone works. This is manga. You don't really see this in American comics. I'm just drinking some Diet Coke over here. So, not bad at all. But in the end, familiarity here is hard to recognize. And the use of passable for this page. This, I would say, is a giant splash page. But it doesn't really work because it's on, you know, on the incorrect size paper. So, however, for composition's sake, Jacob being in the middle, it works. You know, usually they call a character in the middle a hero shot. It works. The camera angle, it's fine. You know, it's fine. But ultimately, because of the size of the paper, The lack of the context not convincing us that, you know, what just took place is something recent. The lack of battle damage. I know there ain't no leg, but come on, bro. You don't just walk out the leg. This woman looked like she came out the shower, right? So yeah, that makes you lose points. So for this page, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. You know, good try though. Good try, Garmin. Thanks for entering. Let us then move to the next submission. And we have Yuan. Yuan was interviewed some years back on Coffee Comics, and he's been doing his manga. I just don't know how that's working out right now, but anyway, this is his submission, and Yuan understands the template very well. Look at that, look at that. Dude does not go beyond this blue line. So, hey, good on you, bro. You know how it is. You like keeping it neat. So, definitely gets the point for drawing on the correct size paper, right? Sure, he doesn't use the entire page. I always recommend using the entire page, but it always depends on what is being shown. In fact, I'm going to rasterize this. Right, let's rasterize. And I am going to increase the size of the last panel, because scenes like this should not really be so small. Let's see what it looks like if it's this big. Slightly bigger. I actually wanted to extend. Let's just see what it looks like if I do that. It don't look too bad. Let's increase, hide that. Yeah, now it's subjective, I suppose, but in the end, the theme is grief, right? So the context is this bad guy just shot one of Yuan's main characters, I suppose, and he falls over and dies. And this totally shocks everyone, Jacob included. Looks like Jacob and this character were friends in this universe, which is cool. And I see Lisa in the back as well. I really like Yuan's art style. It's way more refined, man. Your outlines are so bold, but not too bold. It's just good. The shape language is very good. I remember having a problem a little bit with how you would shade using hatching like this, but it would not follow the form of the material or the object that you were shading, right? It looks like there's been an improvement on that. So this is what I would normally suggest. Now, it does look a bit weird because it's like, look at all of this space over here. Increasing this overall would not work. But if I did this, let's see, we're experimenting here. See, this is the thing, if you're an editor, is that you're going to make suggestions, right? Look at that. That ain't too bad at all, right? That ain't too bad at all. Especially if you're reading manga left to right instead of right to left, right? But this one seems to have been done right to left, because if you start reading it from here, it wouldn't make sense. So you start reading it from this side, right? The guy just shot the beam, he's still standing on his feet, then slowly falls down, and then boom. But anyway, it still works. I guess it's subjective, but I recommend use up the page, right? Use it up. It still fits properly within, you know, the template and so on. But anyway, so correct paper size. Let me turn it back to how it was. Right, correct paper size. Context is one of the main characters gets shot, and this totally shocks the the cast, shocks Jacob and so on. Now, this is shock, not grief. That's another problem, really. Is that okay, Yuan? Good on capturing the actual, illustrating it on the proper page, using Passable very well. I do like the panel layouts and so on, and that's how it's supposed to be. What was the other part of Rubric? Okay, you got that context. Hit or miss a little bit because it's shock, not grief. Use of Passable, correct. Familiarity, however, when I look at this art style, it's hard to pinpoint what it reminds me of. You want to know what it reminds me of? Something you guys probably don't even know. Now, usually if you discover Japanese manga artists on Twitter, a lot of them draw a lot of things, right? There's this one Japanese guy I discovered, I don't know his real name, but he draws, what's that thing called? Fate Stay? Yeah, the Fate series, right? Grand Order. He's an artist for it. Now, the Fate series has all kinds of different, universes and adaptations. So I don't even know which one he was drawing, except that I know it's for Grand Order. So it reminds me of his art style, right? So my visual library, I can pinpoint that, yeah, reminds me of that. But for some people, maybe not. Maybe not. But in the end, this was still a good submission. I would definitely give this a 7 out of 10. You messed up on the context, bro. This is shock, not grief. You could have played around making the panels bigger here and there. But ultimately, it's because you jacked up the context. But good submission. Thanks for submitting. Let's go to the next submission. The next submission comes from Quill, and Quill unfortunately also is guilty of not drawing on the right size. Not on the right size paper. Let's put this way it's supposed to be properly. Position it right. Yeah, it's totally jacked, bro, because of not putting it in the correct paper size. So already you just lost points for that. As you can see, the dialogue here, the speech bubble, totally far away from where it should be, right? Far away. But so you lost points for that wrong paper size. When we assess the context definitely here there is grieving going on. And we see Jacob here actually, right, saying some lines, saying, "I bet you can't cry again, can you? At some point you just run out of tears, and what's left is the pain." Now that's pretty deep, right? Pretty deep. Some might say, "Oh man, that's generic." Man, shut up. It's within context, it's within context. So though it seems, when I assess it even further here, it looks like Jacob himself was just chilling at the graveyard, because he's there on his own tombstone, probably just buried somebody. Oh, most likely his parents' tombstone, right? And this character belonging to Quill, his main character seems to have just recently lost somebody as well, because we see these fresh flowers, right? So he's totally grieving out, and yeah, he's tearing his skin off. Now, honestly, man, this would have been great, aside from the fact that you messed up the paper size. This expression here just ain't it, bro. This expression kind of just jacked everything, because the execution of it looks so unserious. It almost looks like a meme. I don't think you did that on purpose, but I really don't see this as a good facial expression. This one is great. This one is great, right? Jacob here is just in pain and spaced out. It's great. great, great. But then here, the part, it's like, what are we doing? Right? But congrats for capturing the context, which is the theme, right? Pretty well, right? When it comes to familiarity, this art style is hard for me to pinpoint as to what it reminds me of. Very hard to pinpoint. And here, it looks like you use Photoshop to draw this thing, right? There is not any use of screen tones. That matters if you're doing manga. I know some people are like, well, One Punch Man doesn't do it. Well, that's One Punch Man, bro. Okay. Preferably, it's industry standard to use screen tones. We're just following the industry standard. Just because somebody broke the rules doesn't mean you should all the time also, right? This just looks too grayed out. And even though it's like, well, they are grieving, it's still too grayed out. Because assessing this by the passable standard, the contrast game is not so strong, right? Because of all the gray action. The composition is fine. The character expressions would have been better, but all of it's ruined by the last panel, right? The panel flow is fine as well, you know. And yeah, yeah. So it's okay, you know, but unfortunately, wrong paper size, messed up the facial expression in the last panel, and it's too grayed out. So that's 3 problems. So unfortunately for Art Quill, I would have to give this one a 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10, bro. Next time, please draw on the correct size paper, B4 paper, man, right? Yeah, let's then move on. Thanks for submitting though. Let's check out the next submission. Next submission comes from Vincent. Now, Vincent, I don't know, man. I don't know what the heck was going on here, bro. What the heck was going on, Vincent? Now, right here, we have a huge problem. Number 1, wrong paper size. That's number 1, right? Paper size is incorrect. Number 2, the context, the theme is incorrect as well. Familiarity, I cannot recognize it at all, you know. The use of passable, well, the contrast is very good, and the composition as well. So your use of passable is all right, you know, but you jacked up the paper size, you jacked up the context. And yeah, those are really important. As I said earlier, like what really matters is the context for me and drawing on the right size paper. Here, just looking at this page, we see his main character slicing up somebody that I don't even know. In fact, this should have been disqualified, bro. Because where's my character? Did your character just slice up mine? I can't even tell if this is my character that got sliced up. I can't tell. You see? But as I said, I'm not going to disqualify people, but you just got to learn to follow instruction. You need to learn to listen with comprehension skills, listening skills, right? So unfortunately, you did not put my character in here. If you say you did, who is it? I don't know who this is, right? The theme grief, there's nothing grief related here. This is shock value. Your main character saying rest in peace. I don't know who he's saying it to. So unfortunately for Vincent, this is gonna get a 3 out of 10, bro. A 3 out of 10. You don't have my character in here. You did not use the correct paper size. You did not stick to the theme, right? So you lose a lot of points. Your composition is all right, right? But everything else is it's just not the one. But thanks for entering regardless, but this just was not the one. So let's go to the next submission. The next submission comes from, in fact, there was one right after Mitchell, which is this one. This was submitted by Tony Dawkins. And I told Tony, I saw this, I'm like, bro, I don't understand what's going on now. So from the looks of it, it looks like he did draw on B4, but did not stick within the guidelines, right? So it does seem to be B4. In fact, it's slightly bigger than that. Slightly bigger than that. But he didn't stick to the guidelines at all. This was also grounds for disqualification because this is not a page. This is not a manga page. This is not a MANAA page. This is a poster. This is a poster. And a poster that is so hard to decipher what's going on. The theme is grief. Just because I see that Jacob is crying there, what's he crying about? What does him crying have to do with this giant city? What is all of this? Right? What is all of this? What is that? And then we have your main character here, Vode, or someone. This looks like a collage of different ideas instead of one singular page that flows. There are no panels here. Basically, bro, everything's jacked up here. Wrong paper, jacked up context, no familiarity, no use of passable. It's all jacked. All of it. Start to finish. And I did tell you, Tony, that, yo, can you, did you watch my video? Because I made it clear that it's got to be a page, a manga page. You made a poster. Disqualification, right? But I'm showing this so people can learn for next time, right? So unfortunately here, Tony gets an absolute 0 out of 10. A 0 out of 10. This is not a page, this is a poster. 0 out of 10. I mean, if you even look at the placement of the words here, I mean, this wouldn't even fly in graphic design rules at all in general. It just wouldn't fly, bro. We don't know what we're actually looking at. We don't even know where we're supposed to be looking at. We don't know what the focal point is. I'm sorry, man, but this is unacceptable. Next time, draw a page, bro, not a poster. But thanks for entering. But unfortunately, it's 0 out of 10. Let's go to the next submission. The next submission comes from Mr. Mitchell from Black Swan Entertainment. And he got one of his Japanese artists to cook this page up. So let's see if the Japanese artist, used the correct paper size. It'd be a disgrace if he didn't. And yes, he did. Yes, he went beyond this blue line, but as I said, the real cutoff is this red line, right? So, yeah, this page is detailed as a mug, really well detailed. So definitely get points for the correct paper size. When it comes to the context, unfortunately, there's a bit of a miss here because the context, the theme is grief. This here, we're going to read it. This here, Mr. Mitchell's character revealing something about Jacob's personality. This is not something that can result in grief. This is something that can result in, character development or a realization moment, you see, instead of a grieving moment. So in terms of the context, the theme, it's a miss, right? When it comes to passable, everything is fine. more than fine. Did I miss another one? Familiarity. The art style reminds me of that guy who created 20th Century Boys, right? And who created Pluto, who also created the manga Monster. You guys know who I'm talking about, the Japanese artist who has losses and hosts the Manben documentary show. But anyway, let's read what his main character says to Jacob over here. In fact, wait a minute. What the heck is going on here? Oh, hell. What is up with the Japanese artist? He put that dialogue way out of the text box. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, man, I don't know which Japanese guy you got, but this is unacceptable. Now people be like, oh, you think you're better than the Japanese? Hey, man, they made the rules. Why is he not following the rules? What's that dialogue doing outside of the dialogue box? It wasn't supposed to be like that. Every other piece of dialogue is where it's supposed to be, right? But this ain't it. It's supposed to be right here, you know? It could have been right here. Look at all this space that is just left alone. So you lose additional points for that. And I remember telling Mr. Mitchell that you do lose extra points because Jacob's a vampire. That is very obvious from chapter 1, page 1. He is a vampire and he should have vampire teeth. The cover of Bloody Hell, you see that this dude has vampire teeth. And here, he doesn't. He looks human. So there is a misunderstanding of what the character is even. However, ironic enough is that there isn't a misunderstanding of the character's, well, personality. So if we read what he says, you lose control when it matters most. That's your flaw. Do you really think your delusions will save you now? Even so, some part of me still thinks you can change. You won't be so lucky. You can still change, but next time you won't be so lucky. So this expression here, it's nice, it's good, you know, but it is not showing grief at all. It's also showing a rather element of shock instead of grief. Right. What I like about this page in particular, this art style, is how the artists use black to render Jacob's gloves. I like that. I'm going to use that myself. I'm like, oh, I never thought about that. So I'm going to do that. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for submitting, Mr. Mitchell. But unfortunately, though the art is good, you know, it cannot win because the context, the theme was not captured correctly. Jacob's design, him being a vampire, is an obvious detail that you cannot miss. I mean, after all, your artist managed to capture the silhouette of Jacob's hair. His hair is very important, right? It's very important. So that's good, but missing that one element where his teeth are... I mean, that's the thing. It's like, bruh, if you want to illustrate, you want to direct the artist to draw Jacob in this way, the teeth should have been there. They honestly should have been there. Now, of course, at the same time, I don't know this main character if he's got superpowers. After all, Jacob is like a half vampire. Obviously, he's got super strength and he's got some supernatural abilities, but that doesn't really matter. I do like how there's an understanding of Jacob's personality that you lose control when it matters most. This is true. This is his flaw, indeed, that he has to fix. So good on you for realizing his critical flaw as a character. He needs to crash out less, which he will eventually. But good submission. Thanks for entering. This definitely gets... Well, I'd give it a 6 out of 10 because it's just the teeth, this dialogue box being where it shouldn't be, you know, and Or is the other one? Oh, the context. So, yeah. Let's go to the next submission. We are almost there. Oh, that's about it. Well, this one from Stefan. So let's see if Stefan put it all on the correct size paper. Let's see what we got. Let's see what you got, Stefan. Okay. Though it be on the correct size paper, all the dialogue is not actually where it's supposed to be. It's not. So that's a problem. Because when I say on the correct size paper, I mean actually using the correct size paper properly also, right? But this one is very interesting. It's very interesting because this is somebody who read chapter 1 and 2, I suppose. And his main character is one of the people that were captured by the vampires in chapter 1 and 2 that were helped to escape. I didn't show any of the human characters that escaped, but he decided that he is going to show it using his own main character, which is very creative, really, really awesome. However, I honestly am not sure which side to start reading, left to right or right to left. I ain't sure. I really ain't sure, but anyway, so if we read here, we see him. I think it starts from right to left. Let's try to read it from right to left. So he escapes, saying, freed from captivity, but facing the consequences of my optimism. That's deep. I like that. That's some existential action. You know, that's what we're about on this channel. The elders told me maybe 3 days awake is your limit. See, the context of his background story, I have no idea. Of course, it's like, well, this is his character from his world. I understand, but perhaps you could have try to mesh the worlds together, bro, because, like, yeah, you know, yeah. But I understand, it's like, huh, type thing, but I understand. So as he squeezes out from the fence, suddenly he hears bloody hurricane, and we can see the hall being blown to pieces after Jacob unleashed the bloody hurricane. And this is so cool the way he did it. It's really cool. The dialogue here at the bottom, I don't think there was a need for it. Moments after the captives are free, you see, moments after the captives are free. Okay, 1 page by, this part should have not been here at all, bro. You're giving a title page, a title to this page, you're giving who illustrated it. There was no need for it. And I would have said, honestly, there was no need even to put this dialogue here, that moments after the captives are free. There was no need for that either. I could tell what's happening. But still pretty cool. And let's see, it ended here. Maybe 3 days is your limit. But you see, now going here, I'm like, okay, so we read from left to right. Okay, the elders told me maybe 3 days is your limit. Freed from captivity, but facing the consequences of my optimism. Still doesn't feel right when reading it. It feels right the other way. Oh well. And then after hearing the bloody hurricane destroy the hall, he's like, how much longer, how much more until I'm capable? Capable of what? Lasting longer than 3 days? But in what context? Context of what? The thing is, we don't know anything about this main character. So, unfortunately, you might have the correct size paper, but you did not use it very well. The dialogue is in places that it shouldn't be. It's not in the dialogue box, right? The context, though in the context of the bloody hell story, it makes sense, it's creative, it's great. The context and theme is grief. There is no grief at all in this page. There's none, right? So you lose points on that as well. When it comes to the use of passable, right, it's actually pretty good. The panel flow, it's all right. The contrast game, there's not much contrast, but it's okay. You know, it's okay. The character expressions, they are fine. They're just fine. They're just not expressing their theme, which is the real problem. At the end of the day, this was a nice page. This was a nice attempt to crowbar your character and your universe into the bloody hell universe. Very nice attempt to crowbar it all in. But unfortunately, it just doesn't really work. So with this page, it's gonna get a 6 out of 10. But good work, man. Thanks for submitting. Let us then get the next submission. The next submission came from Martina. And this was sent to me in a PDF. Guys, please, I had to take a screenshot, right? I had to take a screenshot. There's someone else who sent me in through a PDF, and it's like, nah, bro, it's supposed to be a PNG or JPEG. So that's why you see the zoom out. That's why you see how blurry it is, because I had to take a screenshot. But anyway, let's size it up properly, shall we? And yeah, this was done on the correct size paper, right? Looking good. When we assess the context of this, yeah, so I don't know if we read right to left or left to right. Let's just say right to left from this side. So we see the main character from the author looking up, and we see him trying to comfort Jacob, and Jacob is holding on to some chains, and he's on the ground totally shocked. And yeah, he looks more shocked than in grief. I do kind of like that you change his hairstyle. You try to keep the overall silhouette, but it's interesting that you kind of try to play around with his hair. Pretty cool. I can still tell it's Jacob, you know. But unfortunately, here for the context, it's like, bro, this doesn't stick with the context, the theme, right? We can see that this is a sad moment of receiving some bad news, but it doesn't feel like there is grief over here. Definitely using chains as, you know, as a prop to perhaps enhance the context of what's going on. I don't know who these chains belong to. Who do they belong to, bro? Who uses chains in bloody hell? Who? Right? There are chains on the cover, right? On the cover of chapter 2 and volume 2 and volume 3, but no one important uses chains though, right? Irene doesn't use chains. Lisa doesn't use chains. Jacob's parents never use chains. King Arthur doesn't use chains. Alex doesn't use chains. Nobody close to Jacob uses chains. So this then makes you wonder, like, what's going on here? You know? So unfortunately, just because of that, you lose points. When it comes to the use of passable, the contrast game is not that strong. However, the compositional game is very, very good. It's very good. But the lack of contrast just ain't it, bro. Just ain't it. When it comes to familiarity, this art style, it's a bit comic booky. You know, it's like a fusion of manga and comics, American comics. But the closest thing I can think of that has a fusion is Wildcats, So yeah, only Wildcats, bro. But in the end, the familiarity game is not there, and this is the issue. If you don't have a style that reminds you of something once popular, people are gonna hesitate getting into it. But overall, I'll actually give this a 7 out of 10. I do like the art style, I do like what I see. It's just missing a lot. There could have been so much in here, right? But I can tell what's going on. I can tell that it's a moment of, tragic news, but it's got nothing to do with grief, bro. But thanks for submitting. Let us then bring in the next submission. The next submission is from Ora Dile. Let's see if it's on the correct paper size. Now, bro explained the context to me through the email. Not really supposed to explain it to me. I have to look at the page and understand what's going on. So unfortunately, bro, you're not gonna get any extra points just because you explain to me what's going on. If I were to just look at this, right, without you writing the email explaining who this is, what's going on, I would be sitting here and be like, dude, where are my characters? Where are my characters? What? I can see what's going on, but I'd be like, where are my characters? You see? So when it comes to paper size, yeah, everything is perfect. Well done. All the speech bubbles are inside the dialog box. Well done. That's good. When it comes to the context, in terms of grief, if I were to just look at this again without, I'm not gonna consider that you sent me that email. That's cheating. Okay? That's cheating. I got to look at this and immediately get it. I look at this, I don't get it. And you want to know why? It's because, number one, I don't know who this is. I would never know who this is, right? I would guess who this was, but I would maybe be far off, So according to the email, this is Julian, brother of King Arthur, and this is King Arthur, right? Who just got blasted. So here, Arthur says, I have done you a poor service, Julian. Forgive me, brother. I have met my end. Farewell. For certain I won't miss. I have missed the heart. That will be all right. Another to the head this time. What the heck? How am I supposed to read this, bro? I guess I'm supposed to start reading here now. I have missed the heart. That will be all right. Another to the head this time. For certain I won't miss. Die. So, according to the email, this is King Arthur. This, unfortunately, bro, looks nothing like King Arthur. King Arthur is a 10-year-old boy, right? The only thing that can show me that it's King Arthur is because the sword he's using is the one he was holding in chapter 7. But I would never know this is him. This looks like a grown man. He's too buff. It's not a 10-year-old. Secondly, this just is too impossible. If Arthur dies like this, well, the whole story is pointless of bloody hell. King Arthur is the savior of the world, right? He's not going to have an easy time, no, but him dying and leaving things to Julian the scumbag. You might like Julian, but he's a scumbag, right? I've made that very clear. And yes, in volume 4, he shows up, because I know in volume 3 he didn't show up. He shows up and he's up to no good again, right? So the context, in this context of the bloody hell story and the relationship between King Arthur and his brother Julian, this is the complete reverse of what actually should happen. What should happen is Julian should sacrifice himself for the sake of King Arthur. Arthur can't die. Otherwise, there's no story, right? So unfortunately, man, the context, even as a basic plot for the Bloody Hell universe, it was totally missed. The context of this being the theme of grief, well, Julian doesn't look like he's grieving here. I can't explain this expression, bro. He just looks sad instead of in grief, you know. I would actually would have suggested that he be in shock than have this sad expression. It's just too unbelievable for those who have read Bloody Hell right now that would Julian even care? Would he even be sad? Wouldn't he celebrate that he's now going to be king? Let's see if I make the mouse a tad. Yeah. Yeah, it don't work. But if I'm going to be lore accurate to the story, right? This is his real expression. This would be his real expression, right? He would be happy. He would be grinning like a mug, like, oh yeah, he's dead. I'm gonna be the king legally now. Even though Dracula won't kill everybody now because King Arthur's dead, right? So this would have been accurate, but just not accurate to the theme of this competition. This would have been accurate to the theme of the Bloody Hell story itself, right? So unfortunately, bro, though you got the paper correctly, you put the dialogue in the place it should be, jacked up the context, your passable game, in terms of passable, it's all right. I like your panel flow. Panel flow is good. Character expressions are too plain and rather generic. Composition, it's okay, you know, nothing major, nothing major. Contrast game, it could have been better, but it works. It works. Ultimately, I'm gonna give this, bro, because it's so far out of reach from the main story. I have to give it a 4 out of 10. A 4 out of 10, bro. Like, it's just way too off, man. It's just way too off. But hey, thanks for submitting. Better luck next time. So let us bring in the next submission. The next submission comes from the second last one, comes from Pierce. You know, the guy I live stream with. So finally we get to see his artwork in action. Let's see if Pierce put things in the right place. Okay, looks like he did use the right paper. Yeah, okay. Did he really? Luckily for him, everything fits to where it should be. Okay, man. Good job. Use of paper correct. All the dialogue, the speech bubbles are inside the dialogue box. Well done. Well done. Now, if we assess the context of what's going on, the theme of grief, definitely this is a grieving moment. It's just the character expression isn't vivid enough of this is a grieving moment, right? But what Jacob is grieving over is confusing. It's confusing. We see him looking at the tombstone that has a D on it. I was so confused as to, like, a D? Who the heck has a name that starts with a D in Bloody Hell that Jacob would care about? Is it his dad? Because Jacob's dad's name is Isaac, right? It's Isaac, and that was revealed in volume 2. Probably didn't read volume 2, but whatever. D, it cannot be Dracula. Why would he grieve over Dracula? Right? Dracula is not even going to be buried. you know, the day he meets his end. He won't be buried. That's something else that's gonna happen to him. But anyway, we then see Jacob has your main character on the side, and I gotta say, bro, this looks like some 3D action to me, man. Something don't look right. Did you use 3D mods? Right? Now, I want to say that's not a problem, but it is a problem if it's obvious. If it's obvious, it's a problem. Okay? Because the proportions here and here versus here, they just too different. They too different, bro. But anyway, your main character then says, not exactly how you imagine it to be, is it? And Jacob says, bloody hell, grieving. Now, cool to sticking to the theme of grief. But what's he grieving over? Who is D? Now, Pierce also submitted this written page that we're going to read. I still don't understand, right? We're going to read this last. But anyway, your use, though, of passable in terms of composition, character expression, as I said, it's not vivid enough, bro. It's not vivid enough. But your composition, your contrast, and your panel flow, it's all right. It's all right. I do like the use of contrast, though. It's very good. Though I wouldn't have used some gray action like this over here. I do like how you decided to draw Jacob like this. Instead of putting him in a panel, you just decided to put him in there outside of a panel, which is cool, it's creative, and so on. But what falls short is that I don't know what he's grieving over, who he's grieving over. And I don't understand why your character is saying not exactly how you imagine it to be. Like, what's he talking about? Manage what? A funeral? You see, it's weird, bro. It's weird. But overall, ain't bad. I'm gonna give this a 6 out of 10. A 6 out of 10. You stuck to the theme. You used the correct paper. You know, composition is good. Contrast is good, right? But in the end, I don't know what Jacob is grieving over, and I don't know what your main character is talking about. So, but thanks for entering. Let us go to the final submission. The submission that actually won. It is Lewis. Okay, it's not pronounced Lewis. I can't pronounce your name, bro. But we have our winner. Here he is. Bro has already received his payout. I don't want to hear, Coffee, I didn't get my money. Nigga, please. You got your money. I got the receipt. So I don't want to hear none of that. So this is the winner. Let's quickly assess if everything is in order according to the template. And yes, it is. Yes, it is. So what made... I'ma just call you Lewis, bro. I can't say your real name, man. I don't know how to pronounce it. So Lewis won because of everything that you see right here. In fact, I'm gonna do this real quick so that we can just look at this plainly. We can look at this plainly as a singular page. Lewis has won the coffee contest. This is a proper execution of the theme, capturing indeed grief. We can tell what Lisa is grieving over. The composition over here, the use of this particular perspective, bruh, this is just fantastic. Having Jacob's original sword in the ground like that, it only suggests that the dude is probably dead. The same way Vain Lover executed the suggestion that Jacob is dead. With his broken sword here, we have his original sword still standing, but where is he, right? And we have your main character in the background there, looking all sad, seeing Lisa grieve like crazy, grieve like crazy, right? Bro, passable here, all of it executed great. Context, fantastic. Page, use of correct paper, perfect. Everything, 10 out of 10, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Like, it hit me so hard seeing Lisa wail like this, bro. It hit me harder than seeing her be in such grief in Vain Lover's page. It's just right. It's just right. So congrats to Lewis. You are the winner, bro, and this is why you won. You saw the competition that you had, right? And I'm sure you can see why I think you won, right? There's just so much in this one page. The paneling is just, it's just good, bro. You know, he didn't have to create a background like this, but it shows us, it gives us a stronger context of what happened. And look at that, dude put Irene's third house of darkness sigil, which can probably suggest that, wait, was Jacob fighting the third house of darkness, right? Was he in their territory or something? There's a lot of interesting questions that you can ask, but one thing is for sure, Jacob ain't here anymore. He just ain't here anymore. So yeah, well done, bro. I look at this and I always get them feels, man. MANAA is about them feels. Okay? It's about them feels under the Koffee comic standard. So well done. This is our winner. Let's all give him a hand. Right? I don't want to hear no haters. I don't want to hear no haters. Now let's quickly read the document submitted by Pierce. I'm gonna try to put my medieval voice, right? So let's start reading. Let's see if it makes sense. Because I ain't gonna lie, Pierce, reading this felt more like a poetry book instead of a page from a book, like from a novel. It felt like you were trying to be too poetic, and you know, you established the context to some degree, but I don't know, it just didn't flow very well. But anyway, let's start reading. Bloody hell, the sky loomed like bruised rock, flat, heavy, as if the sky itself was mourning. Raphael knelt before two unknown graves, wind intertwining its fingers with the silence. No flowers, no names, just two hills of earth slowly sinking back into the earth like panting breaths. These aren't your graves, he said softly, voice cutting through the stillness. They're just symbols. His friends had never been laid to rest, no ceremony of closure, no funeral, only a savage disappearance, like candles blown out in a hurricane. Life went on. He did not. Raphael put his hand against the chill of the stone. You don't stay here. I do. He knew then that he wasn't speaking with them. He never did. He was speaking with the sorrow, translating his pain into language and hoping if he placed it somewhere, then perhaps he could let it go. But the sorrow doesn't lie in the grave. It lives in the one who stays behind. He got up and walked, steps aimless, but harnessed, like a man pacing under a string tied to something out of reach. And he stopped. Some seats away, a man was standing before a solitary grave. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. But his fist trembled, clenched, as if he was trying to pound air out of the universe. Raphael noticed the grass, green and lush in other places, was parched around his grave. A ring of rot, as if the earth itself quivered at what lay beneath. The tomb bore a letter D. No dates, no feeling, just an accusation carved in stone. Raphael stayed there, the silence between them drawn tight. It's not what you dreamed it would be, is it? He whispered. The man flinched, and then, as if he had been a scalpel, collapsed to his knees. The rage tore open like an empty space, and sorrow flowed out. Raphael moved closer, not to trespass, but to witness. Sometimes them dying doesn't help, Raphael said, crouching beside him. Even when we think it should, even when we think it would fix something. Hate is loud until death answers it with silence, and somehow that silence is louder. The man breathed slowly. Bloody hell. It wasn't a curse. It was a surrender. A man dropping his sword after a war he hadn't won. Bloody hell, he said again. Raphael echoed it. Yeah, bloody hell. There are wounds that don't bleed, only echo into the next person willing to listen. Jacob rested his forehead on his forearm and rocked slowly as though he were looking for rhythm in the grief. He said it over and over again, those two words a prayer or an escape valve for pain too large to contain any words. Raphael couldn't see his face, but he didn't have to. He could feel the soul beneath, buried beneath logs and logs of circumstance, shame and years of slow rust, a soul locked so long it had forgotten what it looked like. He placed a hand on the man's shoulder, not to comfort, only to say, I see you. Raphael understood then, some grief needs a witness, not a cure. And then he rose up and walked away from him, leaving him in his sorrow, his anger, his forgiveness. These two were silent, but far away Raphael could have sworn he heard something creak, ever so gently, in the bones of the earth. Now, this page, this written page, is, well, it's literally what you illustrated, but it's a bit more clear about what Jacob is grieving over, right? A man dropping his sword after a war he had not won. That could be what he's grieving over, but ultimately he's on a tombstone that has the letter D. I still don't know who the heck that is, bro. Why is he grieving over that tombstone? You know? Now, you mentioned something here about his friends not having graves, you know, but I wasn't sure if you're talking about Jacob in particular. You see, maybe you're talking about your own character. I just don't understand, man. I just don't understand. But good attempt. Good attempt. But there was a lot of poetic language here that I felt there was no need. Definitely where it could have been used within that particular context, sure. But when you're trying to establish where a setting is taking place, I don't think there's much need to be so poetically vivid about the scene itself. If you're going to try to be poetic, I would rather you do that describing a character's feelings than an actual environment, you see. So, and that especially for the first paragraph over here. There's a lot of figures of speech here that just feel unnecessary for establishing where we are, you know? So, yeah. Well, this is a lesson learned for those who wanted to write something for a future submission. But in the end, yeah, we needed more people to participate in this. I just can't give it to you, bro, right? But at the same time, I would not give it to you. I wouldn't. The establishing of what's going on here isn't clear enough. It's not clear, and Jacob grieving over or grieving by the tombstone D is profoundly confusing. So you would not, even if there were other people submitted a document, you would not win. You would not win, bro. You know, but this is how we learn. You know, this is how we learn. But that's it for now then, y'all. Thank you for submitting. This is the end of our first contest. I will make an announcement for the second one, and there's a possibility that the next contest will not really be a coffee contest, but I will be co-hosting a contest where the winner gets $1,000. Yeah. Obviously not from my pocket, you out of your mind, but I'm working with somebody and the winner there gets $1,000. I'm like, bruh, I need $1,000. You gonna sponsor this? How's about you give me that $1,000? But anyway, winner of the next contest, if it happens, will receive $1,000. So you stay tuned for updates on that contest and stay tuned for updates on the next coffee contest, which still would be a $50 prize. But that's it for now. Shout outs to all of y'all for finishing on time. This is how it's supposed to be. You know, we're all trying to improve over here. You know, this is our own little tribe, the coffee tribe. Everybody who's trying to do something, who participated in this, shows that, yeah, you are an artist and you like drawing, you enjoy yourself. And yeah, you don't want to put your potential to waste or just let it rot on the shelf. Jump in and let's all dance around this fire. Keep ourselves warm. This is how we build a culture, you know? So you don't see any other indie people doing this, hosting stuff like this. Nope. Too busy being hunchbacks, right? So thanks for entering again. Until next time.